Can you hear me now? Can any of you hear me? Can you hear, so you can hear my voice? Okay. Okay. Did you hear the videos at all? The video that I was playing, did anyone hear the video? But before, did you hear the video that I played for like the past 14 minutes? Or was it just silent? No, okay. All right, so I'm gonna start over because it seems like you couldn't hear the video. All right, can you hear the video?
Harvard professor Shoshana Zuboff is sometimes called the Karl Marx of our time. Her monumental book, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism, exposed the dubious mechanisms of our digital economy. According to Zuboff, our personal and private experiences have been hijacked by Silicon Valley and used as the raw material for extremely profitable digital products.
The term surveillance capitalism is not an arbitrary term. Why surveillance? Because it must be operations that are engineered as undetectable, indecipherable, cloaked in rhetoric that aims to misdirect, obfuscate, and just downright bamboozle all of us all the time.
Connecting them.
Don't be evil.
Connecting them. Humanity.
Don't be evil.
Humanity. Humanity.
It's about empowerment of the individual.
The future is private.
What really happens with your Facebook photos? Why are there hidden microphones in Google Nest? And Pokemon Go exposed as child molesters? In this episode of Backlight, Shoshana Zuboff reveals how Silicon Valley deceives us so well.
How all this comes into play when I buy a pair of shoes on the internet?
Well, you know, some people will say to me, Professor Zuboff, I like those targeted ads. They're so useful, or I enjoy personalized services. Sometimes people will say, you know, I have nothing to hide, so I don't care what they take. Each one of these statements is a profound misconception of what's really going on. We think that the only personal information they have about us is what we've given them. And we think we can exert some control over what we give them. And therefore we think that our calculation, our trade-off here is something that is somehow under our control, that we understand it. What's really happening is that we provide personal information, but the information that we provide is the least important part of the information that they collect about us.
Thanks to their navigation and search engine, Google knows where we are all the time and what we think. Facebook knows our hobbies, preferences, and friends because they retrieve a lot of information from the digital traces we leave behind unwittingly. Spelling errors in your search terms, which color buttons you prefer, how fast you type, how fast you drive. Residual data.
Way back at the beginning, back in the year 2000, 2001, 2002, back in those days, these data were considered just extra data. They were considered waste material. And people called them things like digital exhaust or data exhaust. Eventually, it was understood that these so-called waste materials harbored these rich predictive data.
The search information we retain, we do for quality purposes. So for example, the Google spell checker, our Did You Mean feature that appears on Google, has been built using long periods of data around, someone issuing a query and then issuing another corrected query right after that, and us learning those corrections. And it actually takes more than 30 days worth of data to build the world-class spell corrector that we have.
The companies like to say, we collect data so that we can improve our service. And that's true. They collect data, and some of it is used to improve the service to you. But even more of it is analyzed to train what they call models, patterns of human behavior. So once I have big training models, I can see how people with these characteristics typically behave over time. And that allows me to fit your data right into that arc and to predict what you're likely to do, not only now, but soon and later. This is what I call behavioral surplus. These data streams filled with these rich predictive data. Why surplus? Because right from the start, these were more data than was required to improve products and services.
Once you have the behavioral surplus, the comprehensive behavioral data of hundreds of millions of people, you can start predicting the preferences of specific groups. Think popular shoes for male managers, or the preferred restaurant of a group of people sharing the same zip code.
Maybe they do a prediction at where I have dinner tonight, or how can I imagine what they will predict about me?
Well, at the simplest level, they may predict the kind of food you're in the mood for right now, and then sell that prediction, auction that prediction to their business customers in the restaurant business, who will then send you a very quick ad. We know you're in the mood for a delicious pasta dish tonight. We can invite you to our restaurant, and here's a discount coupon.
There are some people who are saying, well, it's very improbable that those targeted ads really can achieve something, because people have their own will and they will not buy some shoes just because there is an ad in front of them.
I think one of the misconceptions that's really important for us to move away from is that surveillance capitalism is something that is only manifest in our lives when we're online, or somehow it's only restricted to online targeted advertising. It's easy for us to say, oh, these things don't affect me. The fact is, this is being conducted at a layer that is not accessible to us.
We have no idea what today's algorithms can predict about us, or what behavioral data they use to do it. A simple thing like buying a certain kind of shampoo can divulge essential information about us. For example, the New York Times reported a case of a supermarket chain that knew a girl was pregnant even before she did, or was prepared to share the news. The market's algorithms discovered that the girl switched from fragrant shampoos to more neutral-smelling products. Since the olfactory sensors of pregnant women become stronger, the market algorithm assumed this girl must be pregnant. Her father didn't know, until he was repeatedly sent special offers for baby products. Thanks to the analysis of trillions of terabytes of behavioral data that we unwittingly leave around the digital domain, big tech sometimes knows us better than we know ourselves.
They can predict things like our personality, our emotions, our sexual orientation, our political orientation, a whole range of things that we never, ever intended to disclose.
The predictive value that big tech can glean from residual data is huge. The family photos we post on our Facebook pages contain residual data from which vast amounts of valuable knowledge can be distilled.
Let's say I put my children's birthday party photo album on the web, on the Facebook pages. What we don't understand is that The most important thing there are not the photos per se. It's the predictive signals that these companies can lift from the photos. It's not just my face, but it's allowing them to have the face so that they can analyze the hundreds of muscles in my face.
Uploading innocent snapshots on your Facebook page can have unforeseen consequences. Our faces, for example, are used to train algorithms to recognize facial features. And we have absolutely no idea what that facial recognition software is used for.
These data streams with these rich predictive signals are fed into the new factories, the computational factories, analyzed for predictions of human behavior. And these predictions are then sold. Who are they sold to? They're not sold to us. We are not the customers. They're sold to businesses, to business customers who want to maximize our value to their business, whatever it may be. They use information from our faces, which we've given billions and billions of photos to Facebook to train models for facial recognition. Those models are then sold to military operations, some of them in China. And those Chinese operations do many things, including imprisoning the Uyghur, a subset of the Uyghur Muslim population in China, in what is rightly regarded as an open-air prison, where they actually don't have to have people behind bars because they track and follow them constantly through facial recognition.
The knowledge obtained from our residual data can be sold to anyone. Facial recognition software, for instance, might be sold to a Chinese company that supports the oppression of the Uyghurs in China, or that helps track down advocates of democracy in Hong Kong. That way, our precious family photos might be used by Facebook to facilitate authoritarian regimes. And our privacy is guaranteed. Because it's not our faces that are sold, it's the residual data scraped off them.
It's very difficult to have a concept of this for a very good reason. It's not because we're stupid. It's because these processes have been disguised. They operate in stealth. They have been engineered to be indecipherable, to be undetectable, to create ignorance in a vast group of all of us that they call users. Our ignorance is their bliss. There are some things that have broken through into the public view that we do know about. So let's talk about Facebook's massive scale contagion experiments. And this is where Facebook experimented with subliminal cues planted in its Facebook pages that would actually influence offline, real world behavior and emotions, to see if they could make people feel happier or sadder using subliminal cues with language manipulation and word manipulation and so on. Well, when the experimenters wrote up this work in the very prestigious scholarly journals that published the results of these experiments, they emphasized two key findings. Number one, we now know that we can manipulate subliminal cues in the online context to change real-world behavior or real-world emotion. We know that we can be successful at doing this. Number two, we can exercise this power, these methods, while bypassing user awareness.
Okay. So I feel I can't believe. Thank you for whoever sat there and watched me just stare at the screen for like 14 minutes because I really didn't know you couldn't hear the video. So yeah, I was playing a video for that whole silent time. So that's why I was just sitting here like looking at the screen. So I guess that means that nothing I said was heard. So I'm gonna do my whole intro over again. So that way, so if you're watching this on the replay, so when this goes to the replay, that's what happened, technical difficulties. So let me start over again. So the opinions, so the first disclaimer is the opinions expressed on this forum is not representative of PLN's official stance. RX's opinion is based on the information available at the time and not PLN's official stance. Not everyone who calls in is a TI. The gang stalkers have a tendency to pretend to be TIs and interfere with activities related to TIs. PLN and RX, me, can't guarantee that TI hour participants, including guests, are real TIs or if what is being said by anyone is true. This isn't to invalidate anyone, but to take into consideration that gang stalkers sometimes pretend to be TIs. And the video disclaimer is by showing these videos on the show, PLN and RX aren't asserting that the people in the videos are TIs, gang stalkers, or whatever they claim to be. PLN and RX aren't asserting that what is being said or portrayed in the videos are true. PLN and RX aren't supporting or against anything said or portrayed in the videos unless directly stated by PLN or RX. PLN and RX hold a neutral view of the videos. There's no implied support or rejection of anything in the videos unless directly stated by RX or PLN because the videos are being used for illustration purposes only. All right. And then, so my intro was, I will not have any videos about the brain chip. My last video, the last TI hour was about the brain chip until next year because 2020 is too busy with the coronavirus, racism, and the election. The general public is overwhelmed right now. But no matter what is going on in 2021, I will talk about the brain chip again. Just an update, a recent article said that the human trials for the brain chip are scheduled to start sometime this year. So sometime this year, a human will officially have a brain chip in their head. That's what they're saying. But I won't talk about the brain chip, but that shouldn't stop any potential watchdogs or anyone else who wants to keep talking about the brain chip from talking about the brain chip. That's my decision, and you do what is right for you. So today's topic, as you can see, isn't any more soothing, but at least it isn't about someone taking over your free will. Kinda. Okay, so it is sort of about someone taking over your free will, but at least it isn't about a chip in your brain. That's the best I could do. I'm kidding. However, these are very serious topics that can change the world, and it's better to be informed than mindlessly entertained into a situation that you don't want to be in. And I hope you agree. If you don't even understand what I mean when I say mindlessly entertained into a situation that you don't want to be in, you will understand by the end of the video. I have nothing against any of the companies mentioned in the video. This is to make everybody, the public and businesses, know that they are taking part, know what they are taking part in and how that can affect the future, how that can affect democracy and freedom. So if you're new to my TI hours, what I usually do if I'm showing a long video, I segment it every 15 minutes. I comment on the videos. And so that was the first 15 minutes. So I probably won't have much of a commentary for this video because it is self-explanatory. I might just highlight a few points. The subject is not at a scary level yet, but it is astonishing. I haven't read her book, but it is definitely a book that will be on the Patreon book club, PLN's Patreon book club, one of these days when I get around to it. I think that everyone should read this book from what I'm hearing about it. Her book is not new. I just came across it one day and said, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So I think everyone should read that book. In the video, the most troubling part is when she said, while bypassing user awareness. That means that they are telling people what to do without people knowing that they are being told what to do. So someone could be on their computer and suddenly decide to buy something that they were subliminally cued to buy, and they would think that they made that decision on their own. They have no idea that there was a subliminal cue to make them purchase the item. They wouldn't even know that the subliminal cue works so well because it was based on residual information from their online activities. I remember the first time I freaked out because I thought Google was reading my emails. I was getting ads based on my emails, and I was suspicious. Um, this was years ago during college, and none of this stuff was out yet. You know, but nobody was talking about Google, and all this surveillance stuff wasn't out yet. So I was afraid to tell people because I thought it would make me look crazy or paranoid. So one day I made an offhand comment about it to a few friends, and they made fun of me. It was silly, and I ignored it. I ignored that it was happening, saying that it was a coincidence. However, it kept happening, and I think I Googled, "Is Google reading my emails?" and it stopped for a little while, and then it continued again. So my conclusion wasn't so crazy after all. So that was just my commentary that you didn't hear, but now that you heard, I'm going to go on to the next 15 minutes, about 15 minutes of this video.
Een grote groep Pokémon Go-spelers heeft met elkaar afgesproken in Leeuwarden. Samen gaan ze de stad door om zoveel mogelijk Pokémon te vangen. Alleen in Nederland al spelen ruim 1,3 miljoen mensen het spel.
A very interesting experiment occurs in the guise of an augmented reality game called Pokémon Go.
In het spel loop je rond in de echte wereld. Op allerlei plekken zitten Pokémon verstopt. Je moet er dus naartoe gaan om ze te verzamelen.
What are we not seeing when Pokemon Go is introduced in our country?
It's important to understand that Pokémon Go is an augmented reality game that was incubated, developed inside Google for many years. Google being the first pioneer of surveillance capitalism, the inventor of surveillance capitalism. It was invented, Pokémon Go was invented in Google, incubated there for many years, developed there, led by a man named John Hanke. And John Hanke invented an operation called Keyhole, which was best.
Ad's about to start. Later. Okay, let me.
Pizza or salad? Which
they won't
one
let me skip
do you
it.
think I'm having for dinner tonight?
I really don't care.
Well, it's not this.
All right, I'm really. I can't stand these ads. I'm gonna go back like just a few seconds.
Pokemon Go is introduced in our country.
It's important to understand that Pokemon Go is an augmented reality game that was incubated, developed inside Google for many years. Google being the first pioneer of surveillance capitalism, the inventor of surveillance capitalism. It was invented, Pokemon Go was invented in Google, incubated there for many years, developed there, led by a man named John Hanke. And John Hanke invented an operation called Keyhole, which was invested in by the CIA and later purchased by Google and called Google Earth.
Google Earth was a CIA startup initially.
That was shocking.
Google Earth was something called Keyhole, and it was a CIA-invested startup. So it's important to understand that Pokemon Go was not some happy little game that just got launched into the world by a toy company or something. When they decided to bring Pokemon Go to the public, they didn't want to bring it as a Google game. They brought it to market as Niantic Labs, which no one had ever heard of. Just a cool startup with this cool game. So now we have this Google augmented reality game, and it turns out that the big game that is on top of the little game that the children are playing is a game that precisely emulates the logic of surveillance capitalism. So in surveillance capitalism, in the original version online, we predict the click-through rate, and we sell the click-through rate to the advertiser, who pays to get clicks on their website, clicking through ultimately to the buy button. That's what they're hoping for. Now, in the real world, business customers paid Niantic Labs, Pokemon Go company, paid Niantic Labs not for click-through, but for the real-world equivalent of click-through, which is called footfall. To actually get real bodies with their real feet into real business establishments so that their feet would go fall, tap, tap, tap across the store or across the restaurant or across the bar in order to buy something.
So I could order by Niantic Labs a Pokemon in my ice cream parlor, for instance.
All of these establishments, they're buying what are called, here's the term, lure modules. Modules like a gym that lure people to you. Not so that they will come and be happy, but so they will come and spend money in your shop or your restaurant. Starbucks, McDonald's, everybody was making money. Everybody was making money. Niantic Labs was making money, and all these businesses were making money. And the people playing the game had no idea. So they used the rewards and punishment of the game to herd you through the city to the places that were paying for your body. This was the game of Pokemon Go. This was the real game, the shadow game, getting you into a place where we have predicted that you will be, so that our predictions are worth more. If I can guarantee you're actually going to be there, my prediction that you're going to be there is worth a lot more. Economies of action are how I guarantee that. And Pokemon Go was a large-scale experiment, a global-scale experiment in economies of action, using remote control means to automate behavior, to engineer behavior, to fulfill others' commercial ends, while you are having a great time. You are intended to be in the feeling of being served. You are intended to be saturated with convenience so that you will not notice and you will not complain. And all of this shadow operation will remain hidden because you will not ask questions, because you're so busy being entertained. So it's no longer enough to just have what you're doing online, you're browsing, you're sending messages, you're sending emails. We want to know about your walk in the park. We want to know about what you're doing in your car. We want to know about your home and what you're doing in your home.
What if home security was different? What if it looked different?
Well, it's a beautiful system.
Some bright engineering-oriented person discovered that the Nest security system has a microphone built into it. That microphone does not figure in any schematic. When you buy the security system and it has the piece of paper that you unfold and the schematic, or you go online to learn about it and there's a schematic, it does not show a microphone. It does not discuss a microphone. Now, why would you have a microphone there? Well, remember, what is our business? Our business depends upon extraction of behavioral surplus, scale, scope, and action. So, what better device to extract behavioral surplus, especially new forms, voices, conversations, what you're watching on television, what music you're listening to, who's coming in and out of your house, whether or not you're shouting at each other over the breakfast table. All of this has tremendous predictive value. Voices are what everybody's after, just like they're after faces. So now this becomes public. There's a, hey, Google, what's up with this microphone in your security system? What does Google say? Oops, so sorry. Oh, we didn't even know there was a microphone there. Oh, sorry. Why? Somebody put that microphone there, but we never intended to use it. This is their business, to obfuscate, to misdirect, to engineer our ignorance with mechanisms and methods that are undetectable, indecipherable. And if they confront you, deny it. Deny it for as long as possible until they habituate. If there's some element that fails to get habituated, then create an adaptation. All right, we'll make sure all those microphones are somehow shut off so that they can't be used. And then wait a minute, and when no one is looking, redirect it. So there will be a microphone in something else. There will be a microphone in the in the home device or in the music player or whatever it might be. It will be back.
What if the measure of it working
All right, guys, here we go.
was that you never had to think about it?
There's two legal scholars, and they're at the University of London, and they analyze the privacy policy, how we give our consent to these devices, right? So they analyze these documents for one Nest thermostat. What happens is the thermostat collects data, it sends those data to third parties, and those third parties send data to third parties ad infinitum, an infinite regress, where your data is going, goodness knows where. And no company takes responsibility for what the third parties that it's sending your data to may do with your data. Yes, we'll say, if you don't want us to take your data and you don't want us to send it on to third parties, that's okay. But be aware that without your data, we will stop supporting the functionality of your thermostat. We will stop upgrading the software. Be aware that the smoke detector may no longer work. Be aware that the pipes in your home may freeze. So now the functionality of the
commercial.
$49 can get you to breathtaking views. And
When I was watching, I didn't have all these commercials.
Fares one way as low as $49, and you'll experience our enhanced cleaning procedures. Big heart.
All right, sorry about that.
device.
I'm going to just backtrack a little bit.
We will stop upgrading the software. Be aware that the smoke detector may no longer work. Be aware that the pipes in your home may freeze. So now the functionality of the device is held hostage to your agreeing to the privacy contract. And they say, by the way, even if you agree and we maintain the functionality, we're sending it to these other third parties and they're going to use it the way they choose, and we take no responsibility for what they do with it. All right. So now these two scholars do an analysis of one Nest thermostat, and what they conclude is that given these arrangements, any self-respecting consumer, anyone who's even a little bit vigilant about their consumption habits, should review a minimum of 1,000 privacy contracts in order to install just one single Nest thermostat in your home.
You have 3 minutes to exit.
What if it gave you time? And what you really need from home security? A sense of security.
So they start extracting data at scale. First, it's everything you do online, and then pretty soon they need more data, but then they also discover that we need varieties of data. It's not just volume, but it's different qualities of data.
De problematiek in het hele mobiliteit wordt in ieder geval precies hetzelfde als de problematiek wat wij nu al op het internet meemaken, met je smartphone meemaken. Dat je eigenlijk zonder het te weten betaalt met je privacy. Want die auto weet precies wat je doet, waar je naartoe gaat. Er zitten 15 camera's op een beetje moderne auto dadelijk. En ja, als jij toegang hebt tot 1% van alle auto's, dan weet jij alles wat er op de wereld gebeurt.
They're just showing some guy driving a self-driving car.
Ja, als die data dadelijk meer waard gaat worden dan het kost om met een auto te rijden, wie weet krijg je dadelijk een gratis auto aangeboden. En je betaalt met je privacy, net als met al die gratis diensten die je van Google krijgt, gaat het daar misschien ook met het autorijden worden.
Well, surveillance capitalism broke through in Silicon Valley 2002, 3, and 4. It changed the bar for investment. Now you had Google making money on the basis of what I call the surveillance dividend. Now, what venture capitalist wants to invest in a firm that's, just making an app when it can invest in a firm that's making an app plus the surveillance dividend? So what happened right away was that the investment started flowing to the people who were making more money, and that more came from the surveillance dividend. And now that is the structure that is flowing across the whole economy. Why bother to put all that effort into the engineers and the factories and the science to make a car that runs without carbon, when all we need to do is sell the data from the darn vehicles, and we've got the surveillance dividend, and all those investors are going to come to us and give us the kind of market capitalization that the leading surveillance capitalists have. That's our new lease in life. That's our path forward in the 20th century.
Okay, so that was about 15 minutes. Time my commentary. Wow, this video is amazing. So I can't believe that Google Earth was a CIA startup. That is my pedestrian GPS. Unfortunately, I'm not going to stop using it, but it's good to know the background behind it. So a common thing that keeps coming up is the government or big corporations using cover or front businesses, organizations, or charities to do things. And the reason why it keeps coming up, if you've watched any of my videos before, when I was talking about Delgado's research, he used it. No, it wasn't Delgado's research. What's his name? Cameron's research in Canada. The CIA supported that under the guise of some kind of human ecology foundation. And if you've watched any of my videos, or if you've read some of the articles that I've linked to in my videos, you'll see that I think some of the researches that are like Delgado's was funded by the CIA under a cover, organization, foundation, or whatever. And I don't know why that theme keeps coming up. So, it was weird because Google used Niantic Labs as their cover. So I don't know if they were trying to protect the Google brand in case the Pokemon Go failed, or if there was a different reason. So I have no reason why Google used a different, I don't know why they used the cover. Okay. But I don't know. I just think it's weird how that keeps coming up. They could have been, since their business, maybe they were trying to protect, like, okay, Pokemon Go fails. Okay, we don't want anyone to say it was with Google, or maybe something else. I don't know. But that's just an interesting common thread that comes up. So honestly, Pokemon Go, it sounds harmless to me, and it sounds like clever marketing. It was successful and fun, and I can't really say anything bad about it. Then Zuboff explained why there should be caution. She said that Pokemon Go was a large-scale experiment, a global experiment in economies of action, using remote control means to automate behavior, to engineer behavior to fulfill others' commercial ends while you're having a good time. Now I can see how something that can seem so harmless and fun, how that can lead to something more harmful. So let's listen again to what she says after she explained how harmless Pokemon Go can lead to something. After she explains how harmless Pokemon Go can lead to something more harmful. Let me get that back up for you. 1918. Let me see. And it was right here.
You are intended to be in the feeling of being served. You are intended to be saturated with convenience so that you will not notice and you will not complain. And all of this shadow operation will remain hidden because you will not ask questions, because you're so busy being entertained.
Okay. That, and I said to you in the beginning that if you didn't know what I meant when I said mindlessly entertained into a situation that you don't want to be in, you will understand by the end of the video. That should explain it. Let's see. I'm gonna go so I could just I'm trying to get to where I left off so that I could just automatically play it. Just give me a few minutes here. All right. All right. So I didn't say it as well as she did, but I have said something like that before, that this could be how behavioral technology works its way into society. If you don't know what I'm talking about, behavioral technology, my videos kind of like build on each other. So if you're listening to this right now or you're watching this right now and you're like, what the heck is she talking? Or you feel a little bit lost, you kind of like have to watch the previous videos to kind of like get what I'm saying right now. It's kind of like a lecture, but lectures are cool, right? I think so. So I also did, because I want people to start talking about what's happening, especially with all this new technology. I also wrote articles called Introducing Behavioral Technology. And in it, actually, even before the articles, I think it was during the Delgado, the Delgado videos, in case you don't know what I'm talking about, it was my videos on listen to Psycho-Civilized. I forgot what the title of his book was. Something about physical control over whatever. It's on my page somewhere. Something about physical control over anyway, something Psycho-Civilized. That's all I remember. But that was the name. So it's one of my previous temporary book club readings. And in it, I said that behavioral technology is coming, and it's going to be introduced like this disruptive technology. Everyone's going to love it. It's going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. And if you want to like hear a great delivery, and I'm not just plugging my videos, I'm just trying to get you, like, in case you're new, so we could all be on the same page. But if you want to know like a great delivery of the brain chip, watch the brain chip video episode, TI hour episode, because the first video, the guy just like has a whole brain chip delivery down packed, and he makes it seem like the greatest thing since sliced bread, and you want to get this chip. But that's how behavioral technology is going to be introduced. It's going to be introduced as this wonderful thing. It's going to be like a Pokemon Go. Oh, guess what? You don't have to text. You don't have to use your hands to text. You don't have to, you don't even need a computer. Just think what you want. And actually, I think they were even advertising that when you go into your house, you don't even have to say Google or Alexa or whatever you use, turn on my lights. You just think it, like, lights on, you think it, and the lights go on. But it's going to be introduced like that. And everyone's going to eat it up because it's convenience. It's wonderful. It's new. It's exciting. It's so freaking cool. But they're kind of like, starting to do things that could lead to something more harmful. And I feel like that's the way behavioral technology is going to work its way into society. They're just going to kind of like sneak it in. It's going to be entertainment. It's going to be wonderful. You're going to be like, yes, and before you know it, we're going to be somewhere where we don't want to be as a society. So, of course, when behavioral technology becomes a mainstream and common things, when people like me aren't sitting here on YouTube telling you, hey, you need to pay attention to this. Hey, you need to start paying attention to this. When it's just like, hey, it's out there. And of course, there's going to be like a big announcement, on its introduction when they think it's okay and the public will accept it. Going back to Delgado, when Delgado and the researchers like Delgado announced that, hey, we can control people by using some kind of device, stimulceiver, or we could just plug them in and we could control them and we could do all these things to them. Your grandparents or the grandparents of America said, oh, heck no, we're not having this. You shut this down right now. Don't put my textiles towards it. And they don't want that again. They don't want that to happen again. So what they're going to do is they're going to introduce it differently. I think they learned from that. They're going to introduce it a bit more differently. They're kind of going to make it nice and harmless, and oh, this is convenient, it'll be great for your life and stuff. And that's going to be the big announcement. And then by the time they make that big announcement, the general public would have been conditioned to be more accepting of it through harmless games like Pokemon. Kids today, they grow up with a computer in their face. I didn't grow up with a computer in my face, you know? They grow up already knowing how to use a computer. They don't even know. They grow up with cell phones. Like, technology is part of their life. They're being conditioned, okay, to accept more technology being part of them, and this symbiotic, you know, relationship that humans are going to have with technology, or are planned to have with technology in the future. So you're kind of like being conditioned into like, hey, this is harmless. Hey, this is cool. Hey, this is convenient. Hey, you know, and then it's just going to like, it's not going to be like before where, hey, we have this new brain chip and we're going to put it in your head. No, because you're going to protest. So now it's going to be, oh, hey, you could get this brain chip and you could turn on your phone with a thought. You could, you know, you don't even need your keys. You know, you could unlock your door with a thought. You know, it's just like you could just sit in one spot and think what you want to do, and it'll do it for you. You don't even have to speak. And you know what? That sounds freaking cool to me. But because someone's putting something in my head, and because you and I know, you know, what's going on like on the underground, you know, most of the people that watch this are in situations they don't want to be in. You know, we know like, oh, no, that's not cool. You know, it's not me. Parts of it is cool, but it could get very bad very fast. So by the time, so I already read that. So by the time the general public would have been conditioned to be more accepting of it through harmless games like Pokemon Go, and they're going to be conditioned by possible subliminal cues used during, you know, your mind and everyone's online activities. And they're going to be conditioned by the residual information that is being gathered about people. So all this is happening for a reason. It really is. You know, there's an end goal. I just think, you know, well, I'm not going to talk about it because that's going off a totally different tangent. All right. So, you know, it's all being done for a reason. So, but we have to be fair. So to be fair, some people have good reasons and good intentions for promoting and developing some of the stuff, right? That's fair. But to be real, some people have more sinister and controlling reasons for being a part of the shadow economy. I'm talking about this so that the general public and the people with good intentions will be more aware of most of the reasons and players involved. I say players because those who are more sinister will use those with good intentions as pawns to achieve their goals. So when people like me, or if the general public protest that something is wrong here, and the players, what they're going to do is they will send out those with good intentions to be their cover or front to ease the fears or fights of the progress. You know, you're not going to, so when, you know, when I come out and I say, no, there's, you know, we need to take a step back and think about it, or when someone like Zuboff comes up and says it, or even if you, the general public, come out and protest, they're going to send out the people who didn't have any sinister intentions. And there's people who are like, hey, I'm a part of this, and I did this because I wanted to achieve this, and da-da-da-da. And it's going to sound like, okay, well, these people are sincere. You know, maybe we overreacted a little bit, you know? And that's what they're going to do. So psychopaths know that there is an instinctual wariness that humans have about them. You know, sometimes you're around someone and you're like, something doesn't feel right about this person, or there's something wrong with this person. I don't know what it is, but something's wrong. Or you could just feel like when someone they could be smiling and cheesy, you know, and have like a big smile in your face and just the nicest person on earth, but you kind of like feel like something's not right. This person just has some kind of like malicious intent towards me, but you don't know what it is. So psychopaths know that there is an instinctual wariness that humans have about them. So they have learned different ways to try to bypass this. And using humans to confront other humans on their behalf is one of those methods. So what could happen is that humans will be battling each other while the psychopaths watch and participate only when needed to ensure that they win. Tying this in with the brain chip, it seems that the brain chip is unnecessary because these external psychological methods seem to be working. You know, it seems like, you know, Google and whoever else she mentioned seemed to have it down. You know, I think they had this paper and they said, hey, we can make you do this. And by using whatever it is that they're using. So maybe there will be no war or protests. And this is how they would get the general public to accept the brain chip. That's scary, you know? Like I said, just ease it right in, condition you to accept it to the point where you're just like, be like, oh yeah, sure, why not? You know? That's scary. So back to Zuboff. Zuboff said that those in the surveillance economy have a strategy for dealing with the general public's confrontation about privacy concern. She said, if they confront you, deny it as long as possible until they habituate. She said that's what they do. That's their general method. So that sounds like a narcissist or psychopath method. So those types probably are involved. What is happening is that Zuboff, a concerned member of the general public, wrote a book to inform the rest of us and sort of confront the surveillance economy. The surveillance economy probably sent out good-intentioned ambassadors, which I just explained to you, to respond. And the general public has remained apathetic for the most part. So some people use apathy as a form of protest. I don't like either candidate, so I'm not going to vote type of thing. Then they complain that the world is going downhill and things suck. Well, your apathy helps things suck because usually the worst candidate has a strong support system through the unethical people who will show up to make sure that she or he wins. The one who is not as bad, if you look at it that way, will struggle to win. So when choosing between worst and worst, being apathetic is not going to bring forth the better candidates. It will most likely help the worst candidate win and make apathetic voters more apathetic because things will be worse. If apathetic voters want to protest and get better candidates, then they should be more involved in politics, bolster and support the candidates that they think are good so that those candidates have a better chance to win among the so-called worst and worst candidates. This isn't pointed at any particular election or people. I understand where apathetic voters, were coming from, but after seeing what has been happening since they have protested by not voting, I'm annoyed and could tell you not voting is not working. That is my message to apathetic voters. Not voting is not working. Okay? So of course, if you don't vote, you're not a voter, but I'm still calling you voters because you are potential voters. So if you didn't choose, you're letting others choose for you. So don't complain about the choices that were made. Even if the person you didn't want, even if the person you want doesn't win, at least you tried and your vote counted. If the worst won, people will take into account that the worst won by only such and such amount of votes. So like, let's say if you voted for someone and you're like, okay, I hate these two candidates, but I'm going to vote for this guy because he's not as bad as or this girl or whatever, because he or she's not as bad as the other one, Okay, so the person you voted for didn't win, but people are going to say, oh, well, so-and-so just won by, by a couple of votes. And what's going to happen is that, most of the people are going to realize that most of the country didn't want the worst person to win, which says a lot, and that could affect that worst person from getting reelected in the future. Plus, you can complain all you want. Plus, you can complain all you want now because people. Plus, you can complain all you want now because when people ask you, did you vote? You can say yes instead of having to explain that you didn't vote because you didn't like the other candidate and therefore leading them to say that you are part of the problem instead of listening to your complaints. Now, what does that have to do with anything? Right? It's like, what is she talking about? Well, I'm kind of giving you an example of apathetic and what it means and what can happen when you're just apathetic. And I think the best example of that are apathetic voters and how what they do has affected, how not voting or being apathetic kind of like helps the situation get worse or could help the situation get worse. Okay. So I know that seemed like I just went off on a tangent and you're like, wait, what? But it's kind of like a real life example of the apathy that I'm just going to go back to the topic now and talk about. And that's the apathetic general public. And so what has happened between Zuboff, or, going off, and that Zuboff is a female's voice that you hear speaking in the video, and who she also wrote the book. Her and me and the other people, trying to tell you there's something wrong. What's going to happen is, what's been happening is that Zuboff wrote a book. Hey, this is what's happening. They're trying to like manipulate you through this method. And then the surveillance economy capitalists, the surveillance capitalists sent out their goodwill ambassadors. Hey, she's wrong. She's overreacting. And I'm just, Pokemon Go is fun. Okay, you like it. And then what the apathetic general public has chosen to do is continue to be entertained and stay out of it, even though it explains them, even though it affects them. So you might be like, you still don't make sense and how that voting thing has to do with it. But it does, because now you see that because they were apathetic, okay, now the situation with the surveillance economy is probably going to get worse and worse, and probably going to get worse, and your privacy might be violated more, because they're just like, oh, well, I don't really like what Zuboff is saying, and I don't really think this guy really knows what's going on, so I'm just not going to do anything. I'm just going to play Pokemon Go or something like that. And what happens is the situation keeps getting worse, where the psychopaths behind the surveillance economy keep doing what they're doing, and the privacy thing gets worse. And I don't know if you think that makes sense or not, but it makes sense to me. And if you don't, I'll try to explain it a different way. So part of the reason, okay, as I explained before, is because good intentioned ambassadors have put them at ease and put the general public at ease and made those who ring the alarm look like Chicken Little. So they just, like, when Zuboff rang the alarm, they sent out the goodwill ambassadors. The goodwill ambassadors was like, it's okay, just play Pokemon Go. And we were like, okay, fine. And then Zuboff looked like Chicken Little. And it's just like, well, it's years later, Pokemon Go is not, nobody even plays it anymore, Zuboff. You're just out of your mind, you just overreacted. But in fact, she didn't overreact, okay? Because what happens, that was a small scale experiment, and they found out that it was successful. Not only did they find out that it was successful, they found out the general public would prefer to be entertained, and people like Zuboff and me are going to be like ignored because they prefer to be entertained, and they're going to be like, oh, okay, so this is what we can do, and let's just proceed further. And it's just going to get more advanced and more advanced and more advanced. So people are like, oh my gosh, how did this happen? Well, you wanted to be entertained, okay? So sort of like that. I feel like, people are confused by what I'm saying, but I hope it makes a little bit more sense. So Zuboff mentioned that in the surveillance economy, the main company that you bought a device from, for example, Google Nest, says in the privacy agreement that in order to support the functionality of the device, the consumer has to agree to letting them send information from the device to third parties. And I think we've all bought a device that said that, we're going to send your information to this and that, and whatever, you have to turn it on so that we can know what's going on, and we can send you like real time updates and all that stuff, right? I think we've all read that. So I started thinking, I was like, well, how does the consumer know whether or not those third parties aren't cover or front companies, So how do I know that Google Nest is not just like has a third party that they call, something else, like in the Niantic Labs, and those are their third parties? But then you got to think, why would a company use a cover or a front as a third party? Well, because I said in the video, the main company is not responsible for how a third party uses the information they're sent. So technically, the main company may not be responsible for how a third party cover company uses information. So if Google Nest wanted, I'm just using Google Nest because that was in the video. So Google Nest wanted, and they had a cover company called XYZ, they could say, okay, well, we're not going to collect your information, but we're going to send your information to the third party, and we're not responsible for what the third party does. Okay, so they send the information to the XYZ company, which legally is not part of Google. So even if they get in trouble, they could legally get out of it. So let's say now Google Nest sent this information to XYZ company. So guess what? Google Nest has information that they could do whatever they want to, because in their contract, they told you that they're not responsible for whatever the third party does. And legally, they're not that third party. That's a different organization, that's a different company. So it's just like, and I'm not saying that's what Google does or anything, but it's just like there's all these loopholes and all these ways for them to just like do things. And it's like, ugh. I just think we should be aware of that. So one of the things that came up in the video was I always wondered how Google got so big all of a sudden, you know? I was like, it's just an app. They just search. How could they be making so much money off of people searching, you know, stuff? They don't even have ads. So, and it seems that part of the reason, as the video explained, is because of the surveillance dividend. They got big selling user information from data exhaust. That is interesting. In a way, they made use of waste. You know, that's what, and you know, because waste was what that information was considered in the beginning. It was just sitting there being ignored, and no one was bothered that they had it. No one cared. So what? They have all this information. They know that I corrected, you know, the spelling of privacy. They know that, you know, I don't know, whatever they know. You know, who cares? But then someone at Google thought of a clever and profitable way to use the data exhaust, and now it's a problem. That's what Google can say, right? And it makes sense. So you guys weren't bothered that Google had this information all this time, but now that they're using it and they're making money off of it, now it's a problem. That's what Google's going to argue, right? And it kind of makes sense, right? Because they're going to have that information either way you put it. You know, it's not that they're taking information. This is information that comes with territory. So that is the mindset of the people who are doing this. It's business, and in business, you try to make money. So we're a business. We have all this data exhaust, use this information. We're going to make money using that information. What's the problem? You know, that's what they're going to say. So it's information that comes along with the territory. They can't help it. It's there, right? It's free. So think about that for a while, because that's the mindset of the people who are doing this. Think about it for a while. And while you're thinking about it, let's go back to the video.
Documents for one Nest thermostat. What happens is the thermostat collects data. It sends those data to third parties, and those third parties send data to third parties ad infinitum, an infinite regress, where your data is going, goodness knows where. And no company takes responsibility for what the third parties that it's sending your data to may do with your data. Nest will say, if you don't want us to take your data and you don't want us to send it on to third parties, that's okay. But be aware that without your data, we will stop supporting the functionality of your thermostat. We will stop upgrading the software. Be aware that the smoke detector may no longer work. Be aware that the pipes in your home may freeze. So now the functionality of the device is held hostage to your agreeing to the privacy contract. And they say, by the way, even if you agree and we maintain the functionality, we're sending it to these other third parties, and they're going to use it the way they choose, and we take no responsibility for what they do with it. All right. So now these two scholars do an analysis of one Nest thermostat, and what they conclude is that given these arrangements, any self-respecting consumer, anyone who's even a little bit vigilant about their consumption habits, should review a minimum of 1,000 privacy contracts in order to install just one single Nest thermostat in your home.
You have 3 minutes to exit.
What if it gave you time? And what you really need from home security? A sense of security.
So they start extracting data at scale. First, it's everything you do online, and then pretty soon they need more data, but then they also discover that we need varieties of data. It's not just volume, but it's different qualities of data.
De problematiek in het hele mobiliteit wordt in ieder geval precies hetzelfde als de problematiek wat wij nu al op het internet meemaken, met je smartphone meemaken. Dat je eigenlijk zonder het te weten betaalt met je privacy. Want die auto weet precies wat je doet, waar je naartoe gaat. Er zitten 15 camera's op een beetje moderne auto dadelijk. En ja, als jij toegang hebt tot 1% van alle auto's, dan weet jij alles wat er op de wereld gebeurt. Ja, als die data dadelijk meer waard gaat worden dan het kost om met een auto te rijden, wie weet krijg je dadelijk een gratis auto aangeboden. En je betaalt met je privacy, net als met al die gratis diensten die je van Google krijgt, gaat het daar misschien ook met het autorijden worden.
Well, surveillance capitalism broke through in Silicon Valley 2002, 3, and 4. It changed the bar for investment. Now you had Google making money on the basis of what I call the surveillance dividend. Now, what venture capitalist wants to invest in a firm that's, just making an app when it can invest in a firm that's making an app plus the surveillance dividend? So what happened right away was that the investment started flowing to the people who were making more money, and that more came from the surveillance dividend. And now that is the structure that is flowing across the whole economy. Why bother to put all that effort into the engineers and the factories and the science to make a car that runs without carbon, when all we need to do is sell the data from the darn vehicles, and we've got the surveillance dividend, and
That's
all those
interesting.
investors are going to come to us and give us the kind of market capitalization that the leading surveillance capitalists have. That's our new lease in life. That's our path forward in the 20th century.
En die data is zoveel waard, daar zit iedereen op te azen. En daarom wil Google ook graag in de wereld van automotive, want op zich valt er met auto's niet zo heel veel te verdienen. Die gaan die auto als paard van Troje gebruiken om aan al die data te komen.
We even now see it coming full circle back to the birthplace of mass production in the Ford Motor Company, where the CEO of Ford Motor now says, we want market capitalization like Facebook and Google. How do we get it? Well, instead of figuring out how to make a car that runs carbon free, what we're going to do is repurpose our automobiles as surveillance vehicles, and we're going to stream data from the 100,000 people who are driving around in Ford cars. We're going to combine that with the data we have from Ford Credit, where he says, we already know everything about you. And these data sets are going to put us on a par with the likes of the great surveillance capitalists, and who wouldn't want to invest in Ford Motor under those circumstances.
The primary economy, what we perceive as primary economy, build a nice car, grow some nice food, build a house, means zilch in this surveillance economy.
So this began with Android. Once Google acquired the ability to make the Android phone, there were a lot of people in Google who said, oh, this is fantastic. Now we have a phone like Apple, and we can sell a phone and we can make a great margin on that phone. And that margin is going to fund our profits, and this is going to make us really rich. But the wiser heads in Google prevail. The people who already understood surveillance capitalism prevail. And they said just the opposite. We want the phone and everything associated with the phone to be as cheap as possible. In fact, if we can get the price to zero, that's even better. We want everybody to have a phone, because the more they have the phone and the more they spend time on the phone, the more data we get from them. The more behavioral surplus streams into our supply chains. So if we can give it away, we're going to give it away.
Google's free mobile operating system, Android, means Google holds the key to almost 90% of the world's...
It was about the third week into Kathy's weight loss battle where things really started to go downhill.
Smartphones.
Sorry.
From them. The more behavioral surplus streams into our supply chains. So if we can give it away, we're going to give it away.
That's about Google and their Android app.
Google's free mobile operating system, Android, means Google holds the key to almost 90% of the world's smartphones. In order to obtain as much data as possible from all these cell phones, Google experimented with network balloons in those parts of the world where mobile internet is not available. Facebook, not to be outdone, flew network drones over growing markets and offered free internet in combination with the Facebook app.
And connecting them represents one of the greatest opportunities available to humanity today.
Hi, Mark. Why are you showing so much interest in India? Answer honestly.
Our mission is to give everyone in the world the power to share what's important to them and to connect every person in the world.
Aware of the potential dangers of American data robbery, India politely declined the offer and made do without Zuckerberg's generosity. In other parts of the world, Facebook's true intentions are becoming clearer every day. But we need whistleblowers for that. Facebook is happy to take our data, but not prepared to share information on how the company works.
So this is a document written by Facebook executives in Australia. And what they told their business customers there was that we have so much data about 6.6 million Australian young adults and teenagers. As a result of that, we can predict mood shifts. We can predict when they feel stressed, fatigued, anxious, inferior, frightened. All of these kinds of very personal feelings. And we can alert you the exact moment when they are most likely to need a confidence boost. Let's say there's a young person who's contemplating a date over the weekend, and it's now Thursday night, and their anxiety is peaking, and they need a confidence boost. If you send them an ad for a sexy black leather jacket, send it right now, offer free delivery, tell them you'll have it at their door by the time they wake up in the morning, give them a discount coupon, right? You're going to sell that black leather jacket. Do it now, and we can tell you the exact moment when they are at peak vulnerability. That is real. That's happening. And if you don't believe me, all you have to do is just pivot a few degrees to something that happened in 2018. And what is that? That came from yet another whistleblower. His name was Chris Wiley. And he told us about Cambridge Analytica.
Chris Wiley, a former employee of the British company Cambridge Analytica, sounded the alarm about the methods used by this political marketing business. Cambridge Analytica used the Facebook data of more than 80 million Americans to analyze the best ways of manipulating American voters.
One of the things that Chris Wiley said when he broke this story with The Guardian back in 2018 is he said, we knew so much about so many individuals that we could understand their inner demon. And we could figure out how to target those demons, how to target their fear, how to target their anger, how to target their paranoia. And with those targets, we could trigger those emotions. And by triggering those emotions, we could then manipulate them into clicking on a website, joining a group, telling them what kind of things to read, telling them what kind of people to hang out with, even telling them who to vote for. Now, that is absolutely no different than what Facebook aimed to do with these young people, innocent young people in Australia and New Zealand to target their inner demons, the same mechanisms, the same methods, only pivoted just a few degrees from commercial outcomes to political outcomes. Cambridge Analytica was nothing but a parasite on a huge host. And that host is surveillance capitalism.
Hi, Ella. Hope you're settling in okay. You know how I always say, everything you need is already within you? The truth is, there's only so much you can do by yourself.
Welcome to the office.
We all need people to get where we're going. Ask yourself who you're going to do it with.
Hey everyone, welcome to F8. Today, we're going to talk about building a privacy-focused social platform. So that's why I believe that the future is private.
So we're all good then, Professor Zuboff.
Well, in June 2019, which happened to be just a couple of months after that grand announcement that the future is private, there was a very interesting court case that was being tried before a California judge. And this court case was a class action suit brought by individuals who were demanding from Facebook. They wanted to have the data that Facebook had made available to Cambridge Analytica to see if they had been targeted and manipulated by Cambridge Analytica. And this had come to a head in a California court. The Facebook counsel who argued this case stood in front of the judge and said that any Facebook user gets on the platform and typically is sharing information with 100 or more people in their network. Once you've done that, you have no expectation of privacy that would make you legitimately able to claim any kind of privacy right in a suit like this or any other kind of privacy-oriented suit. And so here we have, again, the public operation and the shadow operation. What's happening backstage is a lawyer standing in front of a judge saying, no Facebook user has any legitimate expectation of privacy.
This is the next chapter for our services.
You have some Google products you use, if I may ask.
No.
How do you survive?
Perfectly well. If there is an occasion where I feel the absolute need to use Google, I go through various layers of encryption and location reconfiguration before I go to Google search, just on principle.
Okay. So it was about 15 minutes. So I thought that Ford thing was interesting, right? So Ford was a failing company. They were about to go out of business, so they made the desperate leap to surveillance capitalism. And I don't know, to me that shows how much money these people are getting. Like, wow. And when she said that they were just like, well, we don't have to make the best cars and we don't have to, keep up with everyone else. We just gotta put some, let them know, okay, look, we'll put a GPS in your car for free, and give you a free GPS or whatever other technology. We'll give you a self-driving car. We'll give you this, safety protection. You'll have all these high-tech computerized, stuff in your car. And, and we'll give it to you at a great value. Because you know what? They don't care. They'll give you the car for free as long as they know what you're doing and where you're going, and pick up all the information they want to on your car, on your information they want on you. So yeah, so Ford, like Google, like the Google app, they could give these cars away because they're not making as much money off of selling the car as they are on selling your information that they're getting through these conveniences, these GPS, these computerized, add-ons and like cool stuff that your car does, That, like, I don't know, this blew my mind when I saw this video, because I'm new to this too. When I was like, oh my God, because I'm just like, I'm kind of like, my research is based on TI. So I kind of like stumbled onto this. So my research is based on TI. So while I was researching, you're kind of like going along with me for the ride on my research, right? So when I found out this piece of information, I'm like, whoa, okay. I didn't even know this was happening. So the Android story blows my mind also. So instead of Google making a phone to compete with the iPhone, which we know Google could do, they thought it was more profitable to make an app to give it away for free. Now, if that doesn't blow your mind, that blows my mind. First of all, there's the iPhone. If anyone could compete with the iPhone, it would either be Microsoft, kinda, or Google, right? And Google is like, oh, we don't need to compete with the iPhone. We can make more money off of selling this app. So I don't know. I didn't read the book yet, but I'm just like, just how much money are they making that Google could just, not make a phone and give away an app, give it away for free. So that's kind of like mind blowing. So that is so crazy because they were able to make more money from getting data surplus off the Android app than making an actual physical phone. That's astonishing. It makes you wonder how much money, like I said before, they are making off data and behavioral surplus. If you're wondering, what I do is when I watch the videos, I take notes and stuff, and then I just read from my notes. So that's what I'm reading. It's actually, I hate to say, but it's quite clever, isn't it? I'm kind of impressed with how they built an economy and what seemed to be useless information. So, but I'm not necessarily impressed about the controlling people part, though. The only bad thing is that if it was used for, if it was used for a bad reason, then I'm not that impressed, But, the way they just, because I don't know, from what they're making, like I said, I haven't read the book yet. From what they're making it seems like it's these little tidbits of information and they could just make money off of it. I just can't wait to read the book. Anyway, so a company like YouTube, okay, got big off of people posting videos on their website. It was free user-generated content, which is always good and very profitable if you have a website, right? Because you don't have to pay people to make new and exciting things for you. You don't have to pay for that. The users just get on and they do all the work for you. Awesome, and you get the money. But YouTube, however, decided to share its profits and give creators a chance to earn money for helping YouTube make money. So should Google do that? Even though Google does own YouTube now, should they do that? Because we, users like me and you are kind of helping Google make money, right? So should they do that? So the argument would be that YouTube didn't have to do that. They absolutely didn't have to do that. They didn't have to share the profits. They didn't have to, give users a chance to make money. They didn't have to do that. They chose to do that. So Google technically doesn't have to do that either. But I thought I would throw that out there, that, you're getting user-generated information for free. Maybe you should be like YouTube and help people get money, for helping you make money. But they'll say, no, we don't have to because you chose to use it, and, legally they'll get off on that, but whatever, So the part that really bothers me is that the data is being used to predict and manipulate people when they are feeling vulnerable, as in the leather jacket example. The Cambridge Analytica thing is scary. Okay, so now you see things go from harmless Pokemon, fun, harmless, right? Kid game, it's a kid game, to being clever. Oh my God, Google has all this data exhaust, and guess what? They figured out how to make money off of it. Pretty clever, right? To being scary. Cambridge Analytica could affect the votes of Americans. Why is that scary, in case you don't get it? Okay, I'm not even gonna go there. Okay, I don't. Okay, so why is that scary? It's scary because when you could affect the votes, you could affect who is in power. Okay, so people might end up with a president or any other person that they don't want in power. That's how it affects it. And with a president, a mayor, or whatever, okay, in power, that could lead to that person doing things behind the scenes because when someone it's not clear cut. When you vote in a candidate, you're not just voting in the candidate. You're voting in like the candidate's whole crew. Okay, everyone behind them. So this candidate is, a lot of them don't have to fund their own campaign because people are helping them fund. They want these people in power because they want something done while this person's in power. Okay, so let's say if you affect the votes of the people, they vote for this one person, and let's say it is, back to the example about the worst, it is the worst. This worst is going to have a bunch of worse people behind them. Okay, so while that person's in power, that person's going to make sure this law is okay for this person, who helped them win, gave them some money, and they need this law in place because they need to get this business deal done. That person needs to get that business deal done, and once that worst candidate is in power, they can make that happen, and that's why there's the promises they make to their constituents publicly and their constituents privately. So that's why it gets scary when Cambridge Analytica could manipulate people's votes to vote for someone. And this is assuming that they're just like doing all these little stuff to make someone vote for someone and to not, and overlook all these red flags about a certain candidate. And I'm not referring to anyone. Okay, I'm just giving an example. So, that is that. And that's why it's scary. So no matter what side you're on, pro-surveillance economy, apathetic, or anti-surveillance economy, you can see the dangers that are arising, okay? Zuboff is not Chicken Little, okay? She has some really, really real concerns, and she's giving warnings that we should really be listening to. So it went from people going to visit stores to aggressively manipulating someone to buy a leather jacket, to making people vote for certain candidates who can afford to pay for that type of manipulation. So I want to replay one more thing that she said. Okay. So listen to this.
One of the things that Chris Wiley said when he broke this story with The Guardian back in 2018 is he said, we knew so much about so many individuals that we could understand their inner demons. And we could figure out how to target those demons, how to target their fear, how to target their anger, how to target their paranoia. And with those targets, we could trigger those emotions. And by triggering those emotions, we could then manipulate them into clicking on a website, joining a group, telling them what kind of things to read, telling them what kind of people to hang out with, even telling them who to vote for. Now,
okay. That is a clear example of how things can progress, how things can get bad fast. And I'm trying to think. Yeah, how things can get bad fast. I'm trying to, should I say it? Should I say it? No, I'm not going to say it. All right. So the interesting part is that the interviewer asks Zuboff how she survives without Google. And you know what? I still use Google, and it would be very hard for me to stop, especially since Google owns everything right now, right? And you know what's so funny? Now you and I and other people who read Zuboff's book, or who knows about this, we know now why Google owns, bought out Facebook. No, not Facebook, YouTube, and whatever else they bought off, because they want that information. Wow. Anyway, okay, see. So I still use Google, and it would be hard to stop, especially since it's owned by so many popular websites now. So after watching this video, I became more wary of Google because it isn't only just your typical successful company buying other companies anymore. That's what I thought it was. I was just like, of course, they're big, they got money, they want to make money, they're going to buy YouTube. Who's not going to buy YouTube if they can't? They're going to buy, and I keep saying YouTube because that's the only company I know, like right off the bat, that they bought. They're going to buy all these little companies, of course, that's typical business deals, right? But it's not that anymore. To know that part of their intent is to harvest user information and use it for deliberately manipulative purposes, that goes outside the usual marketing method is concerning. Okay, let's be real. Marketing means manipulating you. Marketers get paid to make you buy something, or make you want to buy something, or make you think you want to buy something. That's what marketing is, right? But it just feels like they're going a bit further. It feels like they're being a little bit more intrusive than your normal behavior. I can't explain how or why right now because I'm not really like going into it or thinking about it, but something just feels off about it, like maybe they shouldn't be doing this. And if you look at it at face value, and that, what I just said, that's an argument most people would think. Most people in the general public will be like, well, of course, that's marketing. Just what I said. Marketers, how is what they're doing different from me watching a commercial? They just know how to target it more. They just don't see how that could lead to something more drastic. It seems benign, right? And those are your goodwill ambassadors. Well, we make funny commercials so that you can watch it during Super Bowl. Everyone knows, you watch Super Bowl for the commercials. Well, that's the same thing. We're just cool like that, right? No. It just seems like when you look at it at face value and you don't look any deeper, it seems okay. It's just a commercial. It's just marketing. But when you look a little bit deeper, it's like something's off here. It's just a little bit more intrusive than normal marketing. So I'm not sure what to do about it. The most logical thing is to stop using Google, but that's hard. That's really hard. And it's interesting because I personally feel the struggle, like what I'm describing to you, between fighting the surveillance capitalists and because, it's going down a troubling path. And I'm like, something's off here. And then I'm like, I want to keep the convenience and entertainment parts that surveillance capitalism provides. I like watching videos on YouTube. I like, searching stuff on Google. So, but now I know that, they're using this information to do things that I probably don't want them doing. So what do? It's hard. I'm probably not going to stop, watching YouTube videos or searching stuff on Google anytime soon. I admit to that. I'm part of the problem. But I'm glad I know this because, at least I could just think about it and what I want to do, how I want to proceed or whatever. It's good to know this information, even if you continue, you just should know this, for your own good. So with that said, let's continue.
That is absolutely no different than what Facebook aimed to do with these young people. Innocent young people in Australia and New Zealand, to target their inner demons, the same mechanisms, the same methods, only pivoted just a few degrees from commercial outcomes to political outcomes. Cambridge Analytica was nothing but a parasite on a huge host, and that host is surveillance capitalism.
Hi, Ella. Hope you're settling okay. You know how I always say, everything you need is already within you? The truth is, there's only so much you can do by yourself.
Welcome to the office.
We all need people to get where we're going. Ask yourself who you're going to do it with.
Welcome to
Oh, sorry.
Today, we are going to talk about building a privacy-focused social
Okay, sorry. I forgot to go back to where I left off because I replayed her video. Okay. All right. Okay, I have to choose. All right, let's do.
And then location reconfiguration before I go to Google search.
Sorry.
Just on principle.
This is where we left off.
There is a way to escape the omnipresent eyes of Google and Facebook. You can use a VPN and send all your data traffic through a secure server in another country. But big tech won't lose any sleep over individuals resisting the surveillance capitalists.
I don't want anyone to get confused that if you forego Google search, you are somehow, fighting the fight, because this is a collective problem and it requires collective action.
With us Amish, we are dependent on public transportation for any distance. And local travel, we do it in our slow way. And I think the horse and buggy slows us down and really helps the overall value that we're trying to create and preserve and not get carried away. A regular computer with your safety walls, where you can't get on porn sites and things like that. Now, when our lockdowns that we have, that is totally locked down.
Can you go on the internet with this computer?
No, absolutely not. It will not play a movie picture or music or anything like that. It's not a computer that was torn down. It was built from the ground up like this.
Especially for Amish.
Yes.
Would you mind showing me your mobile phone?
Okay, yes. The only thing you can do with that is call. You cannot text, do anything like that. It's just a portable phone. So this is where it stays. But as far as going home, no, I don't have it. I keep it right here. That's for the business. The technology is progressing so fast, it's hard to deal with. We have to teach what the moral impact is in being involved in this so each individual can make better choices for themselves. We use technology as long as we use it and it doesn't get to the point where it uses us and controls us. That's the bottom line of it.
It's kind of strange that these people from whom you can say are living in the past, maybe they're living in the future.
It was just a minute ago that we didn't have many of these tools, and we were fine. We lived rich and full lives. We had close connections and friends and family. So having said that, I want to recognize that there's a lot that the digital brings to our lives. And we deserve to have all of that. But we deserve to have it without paying the price of surveillance capitalism. And right now, we are in that kind of classic Faustian bargain. 21st century citizens should not have to make the choice of either essentially, going analog or living in a world where our self-determination, our privacy are destroyed for the sake of this market logic. That is unacceptable. And let's also not be naive. You get the wrong people in charge of our government at any moment, and they look over their shoulders at the rich control possibilities offered by these new systems. And there will come a time when even in the West, even in our democratic societies, our government will be tempted to annex these capabilities and use them over us and against us. Let's not be naive about that. When we decide to resist surveillance capitalism right now while it lives in the market dynamic, we are also preserving our democratic future and the kinds of checks and balances that we will need going forward in an information civilization if we are to preserve freedom and democracy for another generation.
The European Union already has legislation with which it regularly wraps American tech businesses over the knuckles. Google was fined several $1 billion because it had abused its monopoly position. In theory, European citizens are protected against data robbery by regulations for fair competition and by the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation.
And do you think that the EU data protection law is a step in a good direction, or is it sufficient?
We have privacy laws.
Oh my God.
And the GDPR is the furthest frontier of our privacy laws. And we have antitrust laws. The thing is that as important as these laws are, we still need more, because surveillance capitalism is unprecedented. And so we're going to need the laws and the regulatory regimes that respond directly to these new unprecedented operations. GDPR talks a lot about data ownership, data accessibility, and data portability. These are very important things if the only data that we're talking about is the data in the public operation, the data that we've given to the corporations. But as we have seen, most of the data that they use to feed into the factories, to produce the predictions, these are data that we haven't given. Or if we've given, we don't even know that we've given, because it came in our exclamation points. It came in our walk in the park and picking up the cadence of our voice and the timbre of our voice, all rich predictive signals. So no matter how much data ownership we claim, or accessibility or portability, most of the data is in the shadow operation. And the shadow operation is never coming to us. We will never get those data. They claim them as data that they own. They took it from our lives. They took it from our private experience without our permission. They analyzed the data. They made it into products. They sold the products and they took the profit. Illegitimate profit, because they took it at the beginning without asking, without our knowledge. Recall, bypassing our awareness.
Do the EU have a chance against the behemoth of surveillance capitalism?
These 20 years have been the honeymoon for surveillance capitalism, because they have been 20 years largely unimpeded by law. Unimpeded by law. Why? Well, the most important reason is that they're doing things that have never been done before, so there are no laws against it. Just like factories employing children, in a mass production factory. There hadn't been anything like that before, and there were no laws against it. And it took our societies a while to sort of wake up. We stood up against the extractive companies and their violence, the companies that came to be known as the Gilded Age, the companies where we turned around and we called their leaders robber barons. That's not what they were called at the time. At the time, they were worshipped as these, wealthy gods and geniuses who knew how to wield the might of machines and capital. If we had been trying to stop it, to curtail it, to outlaw it for every one of these 20 years, and we had utterly failed, then I might, put my chin in my hand and say, gosh, I'm starting to feel like things might be really bad. But that's not the case. We haven't even tried yet to stop it. Look, surveillance capitalism is 20 years old. Democracy is several centuries old. I bet on democracy.
Thank you for watching.
Okay.
For more on this subject, take a look at the playlist.
Okay. So that's, oh my gosh.
You can also watch.
That's the video. So let me do one more thing because I need that video for one little thing. Let's see, 4403. All right, whatever. All right. So Zuboff sums up the main point of my efforts when she said this, and this meaning, I was supposed to have that on cue, whatever.
Not be naive. You get the wrong people in charge of our government at any moment, and they look over their shoulders at the rich control possibilities offered by these new systems. And there will come a time when, even in the West, even in our democratic societies, our government will be tempted to annex these capabilities and use them over us and against us. Let's not be naive about that. When we decide to resist surveillance capitalism, right now, while it lives in the market dynamic, we are also preserving our democratic future and the kinds of checks and balances that we will need going forward in an information civilization if we are to preserve freedom and democracy for another generation.
Oh my gosh. So she just said, she like summed up all my efforts in that one statement. And I couldn't say it any better myself. So she also says that it's not too late to do something about this. Maybe we can still enjoy the entertainment and convenience of Google and Facebook if laws are put into place to tell them that certain things aren't allowed. After all, that's how it was in the beginning when the surplus of information was only data exhaust and not being sold. However, it's hard to turn back the hands of time, and after the value of that information is found, it's kind of too late. The thing about information and knowledge is that you can't really take it back. These companies have made so much money and found so much predictive power that I doubt many of them will let that go. If the law forbids it, the surveillance economy will probably go underground or by a different name, same as the other things that I've talked about before. So there's a need to have a different approach, and more needs to be done than making laws against surveillance capitalism. I think it might end up I think it might end up by making bargains and deals, even though that's not where we want to go. I think what's happening, and I want to say this and I want to be very clear, the world as we know it is ending, okay? And it's going to be a totally different world. And I'm not saying that we need to make deals with the devil. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that as we're progressing and trying to get things done, if you have seen the Delgado videos, what happened was Delgado and researchers like Delgado came out. So let me give you a short, because I keep referencing those videos. For those of you who haven't seen the videos, what happens was this North Korea, one of those, I don't know, Russia, North Korea, one of them. Okay, it's in the video. There was a Cold War. I think it was Russia, right? Well, anyway, it was a whole thing. So anyway, so there was a Cold War, and then I think there was a war with North Korea. The U.S. Soldiers came back, and they were brainwashed, and they were like, yeah, communism and America sucks and all that stuff. And then people were like, oh my gosh, what'd you do? What'd you do? North Korea must have like brainwashed them, because why are these, American soldiers acting like this? They were the prisoners of war. So then the U.S. government was like, okay, North Korea has a secret weapon where they could just change the minds of American soldiers. We're not having that. They're not going to change us into a communist state. We're going to get on top of it. The public was like, yeah, let's do something about this. North Korea can't do this. Russia's not going to do it either. And so the public was all about mind control, because North Korea had and brainwashing, tactics. America needs to catch up. We're going to do these, brainwashing mind control studies. So yes, the public was for it in the beginning, because it was a matter of national security. Okay, so the public was all for it. The government dove headfirst into it. They found out all this stuff. Okay, then they found out that they could control your anxiety by turning a button. They found out they could make you stand up, sit down by pushing buttons, okay, on a remote control, like you were some kind of freaking robot, and they announced this to the public. Hey, we got mind control under, we found mind control. We could do this, we could do that. And then the question came like, well, how did you do that? Well, we did that by drugging up a whole bunch of prostitutes and other lewd people, and we drugged up our own people, and we did these secret human experimentations, but who cares? We got the information. We have mind control. We're caught up with North Korea. We could do it too. And guess what? This is a new age coming. We can offer, now we could have this whole new society where people are controlled by machine, and we'll plug your brain into this. Like, it was crazy. Like, this was like, this now in 2020, like, we're like, yeah, no, this, okay, futuristic thing happened way back in 1940s, 1950s, 1970s. Okay, we had this way back then. They announced it to the people, and the general public was like, what? We didn't ask for this. And then the government's like, yeah, you did. And then the government's like, no. The general public, your grandparents were like, no, we're not going to have this. You shut this down. No protests, all this. You have no right to drug up people, brainwash them. Big protest. Okay, MK Ultra is shut down. Government's not doing it. People don't want it. Okay, fine. It's shut down. Everyone's quiet. Everyone's happy. Your grandparents are happy. We shut this down for our kids and everything like that, right? Okay, what happened? As my videos have been showing, it went underground. Okay, and that's what I said when I think if there's laws against it, which there was laws against, mind control experiments, it's going to go underground, just like, the whole brainwashing thing. So it went underground, and next thing you know, from what my videos have proven, okay, was that it went underground, and now the same type of research that your grandparents, out of safety for you and me and concern for American future, shut down, is now being held as therapy. Okay, deep brain stimulation, TMS. I have videos on this, so you could just go back and watch the videos and you'll see. TMS all came back, and now it's therapy. It's a great thing. It's the best thing since sliced bread, right? Okay, so now what's going to happen next is it's going to go forward to the next stage, where it's going to be a convenience. So that's the background on the videos that I've had before, in case you don't want to watch it. So that's why I keep referencing Delgado. So the reason why I brought that up and gave you the background, a quick summary on it, was because it's going to be different times. Okay, the world that you grew up in, that I grew up, the world as we know now is about to be gone if we let it. Okay, it's not too late. And so the reason why I say that is making laws against something and shutting it down is not going to be as effective now as it was back then. Okay. And I don't think in the future, it's not going to be, it'll still be effective, and definitely still go for it. I'm not trying to say don't stand up, don't protest, don't ask for the laws to change. No, keep doing that, because we need to keep that there. That's part of democracy. That's part of the American way. We need to keep that there. But in order for us to keep that there, we need to understand what's happening and the changes that are going forward. So yeah, go out, protest surveillance, this surveillance capitalists, what they're doing wrong and stuff. That's fine. But don't think that just getting a law in place to ban this is going to stop it. That's a bit naive now. It wasn't naive before, but now things being the way they are, it's a little bit naive. So what we're going to do is we want to keep this within our sights. You know, we want it to be public. We want to be able to monitor it. If it's shut down, you know, if we just have a law against it, you know, what's going to happen? Well, this is still happening. No, we made a law against it. Now be quiet and go home. You know, that's what the government's going to tell you. But if and that's what I'm saying, it might become bargains and deals. Well, I don't know what the bargain or deal would be, but it wouldn't be anything. Like I said, we're not going to sell our souls to the devil, right? We're not going to make a deal with the devil. We're going to be like, this is going to be this, that. We know you're going to keep doing it, even if though there's law against it. We already know that. Okay. We're not going to buy into that. You're going to stop. We know you're not going to stop. Okay. We're not going to like go around, no surveillance. No, we know you're not going to do it. You know you're not going to stop. So since we know you're not going to stop, this is what needs to happen going forward. Okay. And we're going to curtail this. We're going to do that. And that's what I mean by bargains and deals, you know, being realistic about what these companies and what these people are going to do. And then maybe I shouldn't call it bargains and deals. We're making like things in the way to kind of like putting fencing up around it. So that way we're still aware of it. We're still aware of what they're doing. We're not thinking it's over when it's really not. And we're watching it and the information is still out there and we know what they're up to. They're not going underground and doing whatever the heck they want, like they did with Delgado type of research. So that's what I mean. So yeah, go out there if you want to protest, you know, I'm not saying stop that. That should never stop. This is America. But you need to be more aware of how to go about things, because that way it may not work as much going forward. Or if we let the changes that happen, it won't work as much going forward. But we definitely need to do something different. So times are changing and the world as we know today is fading out. However, it's not too late to guide. I think what we might have to do for a while till we figure out how to steer this new future back to a future that we actually want to live in is we might have to do a little bit of guidance more than just shutting people down. But like I said, I'm not saying that this is the way to go. I'm just saying that this is a way that we can try, because I'm not going to know which way to go until people actually do something about it. Unless we try something and it's like, okay, well, maybe guidance isn't working. We need to do this and stuff. So guidance is just the first step. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But I just know that just shutting stuff down and letting it go underground is not going to work. And I know that from researching about what happened with Delgado and, all that stuff, Delgado's research. And I'm not vilifying Delgado. If you watch the videos, you'll see it that I'm not. So with that said, so what I do is I don't really, I want to have you listen to the videos, because I know, to me, like, I've debated whether I should show the videos alongside myself or should I just, let you listen to it. I feel like when you listen to it, you kind of pay more attention to what's said and you're not distracted by the visuals. So that's why I show the video. That's why we listen to the videos instead of, watching them. And then I feel that if I have you listen to it, you're more, how do you say? If I have you listen to it and we discuss it, you'll pay more attention to what is being said. And then what happens is after you go back and you watch it, you're going to see a bit more than you initially would have, if that makes sense. I'm kind of like, you have an imagination and I'm making you use it. So you got to use your imagination. So you're hearing her talk. You're not distracted by how she looks. You're not distracted by the visuals in the back and stuff. You're hearing her talk. You're listening to her, So, I mean, you don't even have to watch me. You could just like turn off the volume and go on about your life. But I think in one of my videos, I said that I've tried that and I got distracted when I do too much and I'm not listening to the video. I kind of miss parts, but you could just sit there, get some tea and, listen to it. You could stare at a picture on a wall or something, I don't know, but you could just listen to it, because I feel like when you just listen, you really hear what's being said and you're not distracted by the visual, which I said before. I'm kind of repeating myself. And then I feel that that's better for you, because when I give you the link to the video and you go back and watch it, you're going to see so much more. Okay. You're going to look at it differently. It's not like, I don't know, because you have some background on it. We've talked about it. We've discussed different points and stuff. So I just feel like it's better that way. That's just me. If you don't like it, too bad. No, if you don't like it, I'm sorry, but I just feel like that's a better way for you to do it. Because, here's the link to the video we just watched. and you should definitely go and watch it. But I know maybe you'll agree, maybe you won't, but I just feel like that's a little bit better. So let me just post a link on talk show. All right. So with that said, I'm not trying to vilify any company. I'm not trying to vilify Google, Facebook, or Ford, or Pokemon Go, or whatever. I'm not trying to vilify any of those companies that she mentioned. This was just a discussion to make people aware of what is happening, especially with things that are affecting their lives. I tried to show the point of view from all sides so that you will know where everybody's coming from. My thing is, I hate psychopaths, and they always ruin everything. So I want people to be aware when psychopaths could be involved or can be involved. If a psychopath is involved, someone is going to get hurt or something is going to get wrong, guaranteed. Okay. And in all these videos, I want to point out where and when psychopaths can get involved in seemingly normal activities and ruin it. Whether you are collecting or processing, whether you are collecting or processing data for the surveillance economy, or your data is being used by the surveillance economy, you have to be aware of what can go wrong, horribly wrong, so that you can take preventative or protective steps. And that's my purpose, okay? So all the goodwill and all the good intention ambassadors, you know what's going on. You know how you can be used as a pawn. You know that there could be people who are in the same field as you who are doing this for the wrong reasons and who don't have good intentions. You're aware of that. You know what to do to make sure that you don't get entangled in that, to maybe prevent some of that, you know? You're on the consumer side, you know, like me. Now you're aware, okay, I know that this information is being used this way. What do I want to do? How do I want to proceed? Do I want to protest? Do I want to like just be more careful? Do I want to be more aware? Do I just want to sit on it and think about what to do? You know, you're aware. It's good to be aware. So with that said, that's the end of that. So I do have another TI hour coming up, and the next TI hour topic, it made me cry and get depressed. As a matter of fact, I'm still depressed about it, okay? So I'm warning you now, because it was a bit much for me, the next topic. And I don't know if that's how you'll feel or if that's how you'll take it, but I wanted to warn you in case it will hit you hard like it hit me. Like it hit me hard. So actually it's a two-part series. It will happen over 2 days, so there will be 2 TI hours on 2 separate days because I need to give you the background so you'll have a better understanding of why this is so serious. So the first day is not that bad, but the second day is a bit harder. It will be in about 2 to 3 weeks. I don't know yet. I just got to do my scheduling and it's also because I want to give you time to think about and do your own research on the surveillance economy. The brain chip and the surveillance economy are not specific to TIs. I paralleled the brain chip to TI's electronic harassment to show that TI's claims are very possible. The brain chip affects everybody, not just TIs. The surveillance economy affects everybody, not just TIs. These are things that are important for the general public to know because it's happening right now or will happen in the near future. I won't be mentioning or showing similarities to TIs and gang stalking in the next TI hours so that people will get the point that the things I'm talking about will affect everybody. So the videos I used, or the videos have nothing to do with TIs or gang stalking. I think, so far I haven't, it's been a while since I've showed like a TI video with a TI talking about it. Most of the videos I use have been have been geared towards the general public and don't really have anything to do with TIs. I just use them to show the similarities about what's happening with TIs and what's happening in the general, in the general public. So that should really make you more aware of things that are going on, because things are just too similar, you know? And the videos that I use so far, for these last few episodes, have to do with what's going on in society as a whole, whether or not you believe the TIs. So with that said, so in about 2 to 3 weeks, when I get my scheduling all worked out, I'm gonna have TI hour. It's gonna be a bit depressing. I thought it was depressing. I don't know if you'll feel the same way. So just be aware of that. And that's it. So I want to thank you for watching. And can I share your channel? And the COVID-19 contract traces are similar to Yanks. Okay, can't be used. Yeah, I'm going to refrain on commenting about COVID-19. If you were wondering what comment I was going to make before that, I said I wasn't going to make. It was about COVID or coronavirus. I just don't want to say anything about it yet. You know, I'm just watching what happens and I'll comment about it, you know, at some point, but I just don't want to say anything about it yet. So thank you for watching. Thank you for participating. Thank you for your comments. Sometimes when I'm like reading my commentary, I can't read your comments, but I do go back and I look over them and stuff. So I'm not ignoring you or anything. It's just that, you know, and sometimes they happen so fast, I can't keep up with it. And I'm trying to like time the video to cut it off where I need to cut off. So there's a lot going on my end. So I'm not ignoring you, but keep commenting, keep talking and all that stuff. It's fine. So thank you for watching. I hope you have a good night. I hope you found this helpful. And the next TI hours will be depressing, but if you do watch, I hope you do, or if you do come back to watch, I hope you do find it useful. So I think it's very useful, even though it's depressing. So then have a good night and I'll see you then. Thanks again.